What's up, everyone? Man, this is a tough one for me. I've even been a little worried about making this video. I'm like, am I gonna get blackballed from fishing because of this, right? I mean, am I gonna get put on that I'm a hater, right? I don't believe that's where I'm going with this, but I do worry. I do worry. Like, I mean, there's certain things in fishing, I don't know if y'all realize that we're not supposed to say. Like, we're not supposed to talk about this stuff. It's like black magic, right? We don't talk about it. So I hope I don't get backlash from this, from the industry. Who knows? But I'm gonna make it anyways, because I've never been one to just be a yes man and just go along with it. I think there needs to be, I think you can still have dialogue with this about this subject, and it's not all negative. It's just something to think about, right? So where are we gonna go with this? Anyways, here it is. This is the only view I can look at it from. A lot of people won't have my view, but this is where I get my view from. All these graphs, it's crazy, man. Where do we start? What kind of got me interested was hearing some comments. A guy that runs a Facebook group, he's from the north, I'll give you a shout out. He made a comment that was like, hey, did anyone watch this on live? Guy just fished for, I don't know how long, I forget the exact comment. He was throwing a topwater, he never once looked up at what he was doing. He was just had his head glued to the screen. He said, man, I don't know if I can watch this anymore. It's all about preference. Like, do people like seeing that? Do some people don't like seeing that? I can go a lot of different ways. Here's my viewpoint on the thing. I don't really know where it's going, guys, and I don't know if they'll ban it. I really don't think they will. I don't think they can, and I'll be honest with you, the reason they can is because of money. There's too much money in this game within the business, okay? So as of right now, I'm okay a little bit with everything, but where does it stop? It's like my viewpoints on the Alabama rig. It's not that the Alabama rig was all that bad, it's just like, where's the limit, right? It didn't seem like there was ever gonna be a limit to stop it. That's kind of what I see what's going on here. And where, yes, it helps the sport, here's where I think it hurts it more than anything else. When I got into this game of fishing, it's a very hard game. And what I mean by it's very hard is it's not a game for everyone. And the reason it's not a game for everyone is because of money. It's not a sport that can just, every kid can go out there and do. It's not like basketball or baseball or football or all these different sports where you can basically for less than 20 bucks go play a game, right? I mean, you can get a ball, you can get a glove, you know, you can get a soccer ball, you can do a lot of different things and go play sports. This one's not like that. I mean, right off the bat, just to get one rod and reel is a lot of money. So it's a hard game to get into, and it seems like it's getting harder and harder and harder for some people. Now, I might get some hate on this because, I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna call it like it is. Some guys will never understand this video. They will never understand it. They will never understand the struggles of what it took to be able to afford doing this. And what I mean by afford is like, man, I had to have breaks, like a ton of breaks. I had to be hanging around the marina forever when I was a kid, hoping someone would take me out on the water. I used to walk around the marina and fish. That's all I used to do. Fish ponds, do a lot of different things. I remember as a kid going to Oshman's. They had an 8-cent worm bar. If y'all don't know what that is anymore, man, they used to sell worms for 8 cents and you could go pick them out at a worm bar. They had them like laid out. Like, that was a big deal for me, and it was hard. I had to save a lot of money to go get all these worms to go fishing. I bring this up because later on, after breaks and being able to, you know, figure out a way into the game barely, even when I was 29 years old, I was still fishing out of a 10-year-old boat, okay, trying to qualify for the elites. And this is what made me so mad. I'll be honest, and he has no idea, right? But in that event, the event was a Bassmaster Open on Toledo Bend. It was my first ever Bassmaster Open. I was pretty jacked up, and I have another story. I'll talk about that event, because that event is very, very special to me, not because of the place I finished, but because of what transpired over over that tournament. But what I like to say is, in that event, I'll never forget this, man. There was an interview with Mike Iaconelli, and Iaconelli was sitting there, and his comment was, even back then, they were talking about the equipment and how much money everything cost. And he said, you got to realize, he might have been talking about the elites, but the problem was there was like 50 elite guys at least in this tournament. It might have been the most elite guys that had ever fished an open. There was over 200 something guys in this open, and I mean, I'll have to go back and look and see how many elite guys were actually fishing this open. So this comment did affect me. When you get to this level, everyone has the same equipment. Everyone has the same chances. So it really just comes down to ability. I gotta be honest with you guys, man. I was sitting there in my 10-year-old boat with my 2 little graphs and my equipment, and I was looking around going, no, you're wrong. I can really, like, man, I wanted to punch this guy in his face. I was like, no, that's not right. Like, we are not in the same boat. We do not have the same things. We are not even close to being on the same level of playing field. Now, with all that said, I did pretty good in that event. I ended up finishing 3rd. It was a good event, and luckily, on some tournaments, none of this really matters. But now I'm starting to go to some events where it means everything. And I look at some of these graphs, and it's a standard now, right? To see 3 on the front deck of a boat. You gotta have 2 in the back. When you look at all of that, I'm guessing it's $15,000. I'm guessing because I don't have 3 graphs on the front of the boat. I don't have 360. Anything that I get, I have to pay for it, guys. I mean, I'm paying for it just like y'all. So it's not easy. I haven't ever had 360 because I had to pay for it. A lot of people might sit there and go, well, man, you know, that's on you for not doing this. Like, anyone that hears me right now saying stuff like this, and you've all heard those comments, like, if you gotta, you know, it's worth the investment or any of these things, they don't know what it's like. Like, I'm sorry, but man, a lot of these guys that like understand, y'all understand where I'm coming from. Like, I've had to work really, really hard to get the things I have, and to this day I still can't just go out there and blow and spend money on more and more stuff to go on my boat. I mean, when's it ever gonna stop? And I know some people will never understand that. They will never understand because they just got money. They can just go buy that stuff. That's not the case with most of us. I think that's why you see pushback on this stuff. You see pushback because there are guys out there that just can't justify spending that much more money on a boat that already cost $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. I mean, it just becomes a lot. And I'm not one of these guys saying we need to ban it or any of this stuff. I'm giving you a perspective of why people are semi against it, right? And what I look at it is, I haven't talked to Bradley Hallman about this, but me and Bradley Hallman, like, within the inner circles of fishing, between some of us guys that are really around it a bunch. And what I mean by around it a bunch, not the fishing aspect, but we're around some of these guys that do really good in tournaments or fish professionally or do all these things. And there's a respect in there with some of these guys. I have a lot more respect for certain guys than I do others. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of those guys that I have respect for are those guys that can show up to a lake and just go strictly off instincts, right? The instinct game was such a big part of us growing up for the last 20 years. I mean, we did certain things, like we still had to learn different things with our electronics and mapping and stuff like that. But man, those instincts of being able to stay and go on certain spots and being able to just feel it out, you know, making those subtle changes and going off grid a little bit and really, really working and putting in the time and effort for that stuff. It seems like that's sometimes getting lost because there's almost no guessing game anymore. And now I know what you're thinking. You're gonna have the guys go, just because you have all those electronics doesn't mean you can't catch them. You're right. Like, that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that it's just, it seems like those instincts are getting less and less. Like, you need less instincts to fish. on some of these events. Now you can see that some of these guys are struggle when those electronics don't play, right? And they don't always play, but they are starting to play in some events where you have zero shot. Before, I used to think when this first started, I thought you had a shot. I don't think you do. I think you almost have zero shot on some of these events if you don't have that. And I think that's where the guys that don't have this equipment are getting frustrated and knowing that this is not going to stop, right? It's only going to possibly get worse, where it might be 4 graphs from now, or we need the next best thing that's going to help, because those guys that are doing it professionally, they know that if they don't have it, they're losing, and they're doing everything in their power to get it as well. But here's the problem: a lot of other sports, it just takes talent to get there, right? You just have to have talent. Well, talent in a lot of these sports was just being able to play the game and practice harder, right? Like, you had the opportunity to practice every day. Like, if you want to be, if you want to be the best shooter in the NBA, you go out there and shoot you about 500 jump shots a day. You want to be the best hitter, the best pitcher, man, you just get out there and work hard, get in the gym, do a lot of different things. It seems like here, fishing has always been a little bit harder to get out there and practice. Everyone says time on the water, time on the water. Well, time on the water means having a boat to do all this stuff. Well, what happens is that gap between people having money and not having money, that gap is getting larger, and it's making that gap harder. And so you see a lot of these guys out there that have all the money in the world, that can do anything they want to do to get there. It's making it hard on those guys that don't. I'm just being honest. Some of these guys are going to have all these excuses and make these comments about, work harder, about this or that, or about all this money. Man, like, it's not that simple, guys. There's some guys, like, they didn't grow up with money. I was one of those guys. There's guys in college with $60,000 to $80,000 rigs and stuff, learning this game, and it's just one of those hard deals. I think that's where the division is. That gap is getting a lot larger, right? And it's making it very, very, very tough on the guy that's trying to use all his abilities to become a better fisherman. And no matter how good his abilities are, in some of these events, the best ability in the world will still not beat the electronics. Okay, that's good for the electronics world, right? It's good for those guys. It's very difficult on the fishermen, and that's the problem, and that's what you're seeing guys complain about, right? Is that gap, and eventually, I don't know where it's going to lead, right? Where it's going to go. It's making it harder and harder for these guys. I'll be honest with you. One of the worst things in fishing that I hear a lot of times, they promote this dream. I'm gonna say this: they're gonna promote a dream, right? They promote this dream of bass fishing and these things, and what it is not a reality. Okay, not everyone can grow up and be a professional fisherman, and not everyone, if you don't have the means, it becomes very, 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 very hard. Very hard, almost impossible without the means to become a bass fisherman, because it's so hard to get in the game, because without money you can't. So that's part of the problem, and that's the thing. We're selling a dream to kids, but we're not selling a dream to every kid. Just some kids, and the other guys that are trying to work it and trying to make it, there's some guys with some talent that might not ever make it, because they might not ever have it. It just becomes, the money becomes too hard, and it's always been hard in the game. The game's always been hard with money. It's always been one of those deals where it's why I really didn't fish the elites when I qualified. I didn't have the money. I wasn't going to go in there into the fishing game. I'll get back to that. In 2009, when I came in third, I fished the next open and came in fifth. And so, and I fished the last event, didn't do too well, but still qualified for the elites. Everyone was shocked when I turned it down. I was in a 10-year-old boat, an 8-year-old truck. I didn't have the money to just go out there and just start fishing and traveling around this country on hoping I'll do good in those events. My boat wasn't making it. Like, my boat broke down on both events of those first 2 opens. In the last open, I borrowed a boat because a buddy of mine felt bad for me because my boats weren't making it. I was gonna have to now spend more money on a boat, more money on a truck. Still didn't have entry fees paid for. And I want some guys, these guys in these tournaments, man, like, blow me away. Even locally, like, guys don't ever sit down and put a pen and paper to it. I tell these guys all the time, put a pen and paper to it and look at what these guys are making. Even on the elites, the tour, MLF, like, you can see some of these guys that are leading angler of the year are not even making that much money. Like, they're the best fishermen that year, and they're what they've put in and what they're getting back, if you just take fishing, man, it's tough. It's not a lot. It's not that much money to make. You're considered maybe one of the best fishermen in the world, and you didn't make $100,000 that year. Like, you're considered the best fisherman in the country, and your purse for that year is at the most 100 grand. Let's take $30,000 away from that, another 20 for traveling and everything. That's 50. The best fisherman in the world that year made $50,000. Man, I don't know if anyone's looked around these days. There's some jobs out there that start off that you're 21 years old doing really not that much work for 50 grand. It's tough, and everyone's like, well, go get you a sponsor. Man, when I qualified, I had a month and a half to go try to figure out how to get a sponsor. It wasn't happening. I was a pretty young guy trying to go get a sponsor, and because at the time we didn't know we were going to make the elites. Like, how do you go get a sponsor based on the fact hoping you're going to make the elites? It doesn't work that way. If I did it now, I can do it, but at the time it was very tough. So I say all this because I've been there, and I've done it, and I've seen it. And so, although I have, I just got a live scope this year, right? So I've seen the power of it, but I also understand why some people are having problems with what's going on. I don't know really what to tell you guys. All I'm trying to do is give a different perspective on why you hear some pushback on it, and why I understand it. I can relate to it, and honestly, like I said, it's not so much where we're at now, but where's it ever going to stop, right? Where's it going to end? Where's the end point to where it becomes less fishing, and will it ever get so electronic dominated that we lose that intuition, that ability to just fish? Like, man, that used to be what I look at some of those guys, man, that they could just, like, how did you just all of a sudden throw everything away and start doing this and doing that? Like, I prided myself on being able to do that, to make these decisions on and off the water, like that, man. And now I don't know if that's getting less and less. So I made this video. I hope I don't get, blackballed from fishing because of this. So that's the video, guys. I mean, let me know what y'all guys think. Let me know if I'm overreacting, or if y'all kind of get with me on this, you know what I'm saying? So anyways, hope you enjoyed it. See y'all.